Good day, students. Welcome back again to Understanding Culture, Society, and Politics. I am Miss Wildy Anne G. Villanueva, and I will be teaching today the lesson 5, which is the political science and the study of politics. At the end of this module, you can identify the following. Identify the subject of the inquiry and goals of political science. Discuss the concept of power, aspired value in a society, and recognize the value of political science in the 21st century. Man is the political animal, meaning that it is our nature to live in society and to have power over one another. But how we arrange these things is up to us. For our lesson for today, we have the political science as a discipline. What is the difference between the political scientist and kagaya natin ng mga common individuals when it comes in discussing the efficiency of government projects? Kasi madalas natin yan napapanood, nakikita sa mga sessions ng president natin sa mga balita. For a layman's interpret, the actions of the government based on his or her experience. Pero paano ang mga estudyante na mga wala pang experience when it comes sa politics or pagboto? 'Di ba? When it comes naman sa political scientist, gumagamit sila ng mga scientific inquiries to evaluate the performance of the government. So ngayon, pag-aralan natin, what is political science? Political science is the branch of knowledge that deals with system of government. It analyzes the political activity and behavior. It is also the study of governments and how they work by Miriam, and it deals with those relations among men and groups which are subject to control by state, with the relation of men and groups of state itself, and with the relation of state to the other states. Based to the American Political Science Association 2013, political science is a study of government, public policies, and political process, system, and political behavior. These topics are covered by the subdisciplines of political science such as political theory, comparative politics, international relations, political behavior, public policy, and public administration. The first is the political theory. It examines the contemporary applications of political concepts such as human rights, equality, peace, justice, and it seeks to address the variance of its implementation in our societies with the aim of understanding the nature of these concepts and the elements that affect it. Maraming fields kagaya ng political theory ang nagpo-provide ng iba't ibang conceptual critics na ginagamit sa iba't ibang concepts sa government. For example, the global north concepts of justice is not universal, and sa ibang global south countries naman, conflicts are not resolved by meeting justice in the context of punishment, but in the form of reconciliation of parties. And also, learning political science help us to analyze the current events that impacts our everyday life. Next is comparative politics. It is a branch of political science that aims to provide context to the differences in government and political system. It examines the parallelism and divergence of political system to provide analysis of the factor that makes government efficient and the factor that makes them fail. And this field naman provides us a scientific comparison of the government and the political institution na nakakatulong sa atin para lalong mas maintindihan ang iba't ibang policy formulation and the relevant of it to the locality. Here are the examples. The practice of democracy is the big concern in our government. Most members of the global north is oftentimes different from how it is practiced the democracy in different countries like Global South, as it is embedded the local political culture. International relations. It is a study of state to state relations and the wider margins of the impact of globalization and the climate change, such as terrorism, piracy, democratization of non Western territories, fall into category of international relations. It is also the study of politics, economics, and law on a global level. They examine social science and humanities in an international context. Actually, it is a new field that starts as early as 20th century lang, right after World War One, more or less. But most studied sa mga universities and as a course, ito ay nag-start after the World War Two. International relationship have different views, approaches, and concepts in studying this field. And it's good thing kasi meron tayong mga diverse approaches and methods na ginagamit para maintindihan natin ang bawat perspective and the world itself. But in spite ng differences ng mga methods and concepts and views na ginagamit, we are linked as one with other states, territories, and countries. And bakit ba natin kailangan pag-aralan at least yung concept ng international relations? As those relations are complex, involved dito ang multinational companies, smugglers, refugees, and so on. International relation focus on everything. Everything. That's above the state. Includes dito yung threats and everything that affects particular states like migration, pollution, ano pa ba, war, yan, terrorism. And the purpose is to why certain things happen. Bakit? Nga ba? And if you look for a deeper answer, you will go back to what is the trends and events today. UN's purpose, United Nations purpose is include peacekeeping, cultivating friendly international relations, assisting in alleviating of poverty, hunger, disease, and illiteracy, as well as advancing human rights and providing a forum where countries can meet and work together to advance these goals. Napakalaki ng naitulong sa atin ng United Nations. Political behavior, it is the field that covers the attitude, knowledge, and action of an individual in response to political variables such as policies created by the government, behavior of politicians, and the general political environment. Madalas naririnig natin, masyado kang mapolitika, sabi nila. You're being political, or this place is political. Minsan pag naririnig natin yun, sobrang negative niya, no? And meron siyang a bad way, parang ganon. We say political if our objective is to gain power. So, political behavior is neither good nor bad. Depende sa gagamit. And it is just that people are inherently involved in power relations, and it's natural for people to gain more power in order to achieve something through influence. If it all depends on what exactly the way power is gained and the purpose it is used for. Pero kadalasan sana hindi tayo masyadong magkaroon ng ganitong behavior when it comes to work kasi walang peace of mind. Hindi siya maganda. And another example that these types of studies are important for drafting election campaigns also, engaging the electorate's inclination to support a policy. According to Alfred McCoy, an American political scientist, the Philippines has strong families that have political influence. Kaya, familiar tayo sa presence ng political dynasties in different regions, bawat cities, yan, marami yan, allowing for the perpetuation of political dynasties. Public policy. It is a reflection of political society that defines a good life and how they try to achieve through their political institutions. Marami tayong public policies in different areas tulad ng education policy, environmental policy, social policy, criminal justice, about healthcare, economic policy, and so on. The policy process mainly done by the public administrators. And later, papaliwanag natin what is public administrators. Due to the nature of this field, it operates with the sub-disciplines na binanggit natin kanina to create a comprehensive analysis of a public policy. Actually, this discipline is significant for evaluating the efficiency of enacted policies available. Uh, for example, the controversial policies such as the RH law and the HIV or AIDS law, Philippine AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 1988, provide a window for analysis on the actors and factors to play in the Philippine political environment. These laws were received with strong opposition from the religious sectors and the pro-family groups. Nababalitaan nyo to sa mga news years ago, while it rallied support from the family planning advocates. Public policy is the best described as the broad area of government laws, regulation, court decisions, and local ordinances. But today, government affects all aspects of our lives, and everyone has a stake in the public policies enacted by the state or local governments. In other words, public policies are a piece of legislation, guidelines, program requirements, regulations, and so on. Okay, as part of your performance task, you have an assignment. Please research about the public policy process in our country and ipasa niyo po ito sa Google Drive natin within this week. Alright? We have another topic under subdisciplines of political science, which is the public administration. Public administration is another branch with the various administrative schemes implemented by the government officials. In other words, they are the public servant or the government official. Public administration is the implementation policy and also an academic discipline that studies the implementation and prepares civil employees for working in the public services. It is another field in which leaders serve communities to advance the common good and affect positive change. Public administration, in other way of saying this, is actually governing. And it is a field of political science that plans, organizes, directs, coordinates, and control operations at government. Okay, let's proceed to the other lesson, which is the five primary variables that consist of analyzing the political dynamics within our society. It helps us by analyzing this David Easton's political system model of 1957. Easton's present five primary variables consist of environment, input, political system, output, and feedback. The environment consists of historical, social, and economic conditions of the society that affects the systems of policies accepted and declined by the electorate. In this category, you should consider the following question. Examples lang naman to. Number one, is the country from the global north or the global south? Or is the country culturally pluralistic or homogeneous? And another consideration or another example is, does the country have the colonial past? These pertinent inquiries or questions, as this would yield a background on the types of responses to the system society will have. So, yun yung mga other examples ng environment in analyzing the politics. Another variable is input. This refers to the forms of political events or products that are needed by society from each government. And it actually have two categories like demand and support. What is demand? Demand refers to the perceived needs of the population that could better their lives, and they may include their wages, uh, peaceful work or equality in their workplace, mas mababang taxes, and marami pang iba. Again, this is affected by the environment. So, as you can see, balikan natin yung model. It affects the environment as needed to electorate uh, vary per environmental condition. The next is support. It refers to the mechanisms within the system that would allow us for such demands to be facilitated. Example nito yung um, demand for additional wages ng mga public teachers and the support sectors as per working class of political parties and the public school teachers. Yun. The demand should also have the support from existing structures. But even if there is a general public supports for the teachers, there is no facilitating institution to accommodate the needed change. So, napakarami pa rin mga batas na hindi pa rin hanggang ngayon napapatupad regarding dyan. Then it will have lesser changes of being heard by the government. Kaya maraming mga nagrarally. After natin malaman kung ano yung mga demands and support na kailangan within the societies or yung mga problems na dapat na solusyonan, and ito yung susunod na variable, which is the political system that act like a black box through which every form of demand is sifted and decided upon. Sa pag-implement ng mga batas na kailangan, it could be either democratic or socialist, parliamentary or presidential, and unitary or federal. Ayan, nababalitaan natin sa news na nagkakaroon na ng voting when it comes sa federalism dito sa ating bansa. Later on, ipapaliwanag ko kung bakit kailangan natin magpalit ng political system. Yun. Based on the nature of the political system, the demands talaga are either acted upon or never talaga at all, or never nyo talaga narinig na nasolusyonan. The decision of the government toward the input are called output, and this includes the policies, rules, laws, regulation, and projects. Like for example, so yung pagtaas nga ng yung hinihinging pagtaas nga ng sweldo ng mga teachers, the government could grant it by creating law that would increase their wages or provide the alternate solution sa pagde-deload at least ng mga trabaho ng mga teachers to enable them to indulge into their occupation. So, maraming maaaring maging paraan, pero nasa political system talaga kung paano siya i-apply. Whichever the government decides on, opinions, responses would be made by affected sectors. Ito naman yung tinatawag na feedback. Feedback is very important, lalo na sa system natin. It gauge the efficiency of its response to the public need. Kung talaga bang naibibigay yung mga needs ng mga problems. And it also provide the government a basis for improving its response to public demands. Napakahalaga ng feedback. Feedback on decisions made by the system can also affect the system and types of demand or the support that will be made later by the public. Okay, for our next topic, here are the 8 most essential terms used in the field of political science. And as too similar sa mga nakaraan nating lessons kagaya ng anthropology and sociology, political science also has discipline-based concepts na makakatulong sa atin to analyze the society. Number 1, politics. This is a central concept in the discipline as much as a society's sociology and culture is to anthropology. Here are the different definitions of politics. The term politics used to describe how the power is distributed in the government. Lagi nating tandaan na it describes who holds the office and how individuals and groups make this decision. Question: how do I need to learn about politics? Bakit nga ba? And paano natin malalaman kung nakikipag-participate na tayo in politics? We need to learn or study about politics because knowledge is the best defense against scrupulous or dishonest people who use our ignorance to get us do the things that they want rather than what we should think we should be done. Paano naman tayo nakakapag-participate in politics? You participate in politics when you answer the public opinion poll or write an editor or online commentation or article or manood ka lang ng mga vlog or making YouTube videos or mag-tweet ka or mag-comment ka sa mga YouTube regarding sa politics or government issues. You can also participate in political process kagaya ng makisama ka sa mga nagra-rally or maupo ka sa dinner table with your parents or with your friends and you discuss or convince them with something or at your age pwede na kayong mag-run sa SK or Sangguniang Kabataan for an office kahit hindi ka manalo. So, kasama na yun sa political process. The most important that you can do to participate in the government and politics is both and easiest and the most challenging. Become more educated. Anyone can be a citizen, but to be a good citizen requires understanding on how the government works and we can participate about it. It requires knowledge and effort, and we have to do it because otherwise we ended up being led rather than being leaders. In the scientific study of politics, there are typically three types of legitimacy or kinds of legitimate rule. But first, alamin muna natin kung anong ibig sabihin ng legitimacy or legitimate. Legitimacy means the recognition, acceptance, support for an existing form of rule or government as right and proper. And a legitimate government naman means has a recognized, accepted, and supported sphere of influence by the majority. So, napakahalaga na popular ka and accepted ka ng mga tao na nasa paligid mo. A popular consent of the governed is the basic condition of the legitimate authority. German sociologist Max Weber identifies the three types of legitimacy consist of traditional legitimacy, charismatic legitimacy, and rational legal legitimacy. Sa mga susunod na videos, i-explain natin isa-isa itong three types of legitimacy na ito. As for the best examples ng legitimacy, it is easier for us to understand kung madedefine natin ang difference ng power and authority. Pero unahin muna natin what is power. Power is a nominal term for social relations and thus exists as a given in all societies in form of social interaction. Pero ang authority, on the other hand, ito naman yung byproducts ng power or kung paano yung social relations are organized in given social settings. The authority is conferred to a person or a group of people whose position in society matches the society's mode of constituting political authority in a given historical period. Example nito ay ang feudal epoch, kings, monarchs, and bishops na nagko-control over the majority. The analysis of power in the form of political theory was born in the ancient Greece pa. So, as defined by Robert Dahl, it is the ability of person A to make person B do what person B would not otherwise do. And from Merriam-Webster naman, it defines as the right or means to command or control others. Bigay tayo ng mga examples. Paano ba natin nalalaman na this is power in our everyday life? Ikaw, meron ka rin bang naiisip na other examples? Can you also give an example of power in our everyday life? Kung meron kang naiisip, please comment down below. I have to tell you something about power and authority and the story of king and his crown. The greatest mistake of the king is his assumption that he is king dahil meron siyang crown. Therefore, he assumes that there is something essentially powerful about his crown. Pero ang totoo nun, the king's crown is the same truth about power and authority. The king is king because people recognize the power of his crown. In other words, the people relate to the crown in a particular way, and it is a symbol of power for them. However, wears the crown is a worthy figure of this symbol of the authority that the people confer to the crown. So, the king is not a king because of his crown. He is king because the people recognize his crown. Without the people's consent to a particular form of social relation or power, for example, one, one entity controlling another, authority cannot be established. So, in the end, especially in the modern democracy and dictatorial regimes, authority resides in and depends on the continued recognition of power and not in the inherent power of the political leader. Sa totoong buhay, wala naman talagang problema with the authority. Pero based sa history natin, the state has only reflected use and abuse of power of the economic elite or the ruling class. The majority's participation in politics is only encouraged and maximized by political leaders to activate the electoral process. And ito yung pinaka-challenging sa lahat. The true and participative democracy, tandaan natin ito, a state for, by, and of the people. So let's proceed to our next topic, which is the state. Ano nga ba ang state? Ang Estado ay may sapat na bilang upang suportahan ang kanyang sarili. Ito rin ay permanentang umuukupa sa isang tiyak na bahagi ng daigdig na may malayang panlabas na kontrol at may pamahalaan na sinusunod ang mga naninirahan dito. Based dito sa definition, meron tayong apat na elements ng states, which is territory, government, people, and sovereignty. Mamaya, tuturo natin kung ano-ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin ng mga ito. Pero bago yun, tukuyin muna natin kung ano ang ibig sabihin ng nation. Ano nga ba ang nasyon? Ang nation ay isang salita, isang ethno-cultural na konsepto. Ito rin ay isang nation or nasyon na tumutukoy sa komunidad ng isang tao na may kultural na pagkakatulad. Sila ay may pare-parehas na language, religion, customs, at marami pang iba. Magbigay tayo ng example. Ang nation ay maaaring buuin ng iba't ibang estado tulad ng Arab nation. Example ng pumapaloob sa isang Arab nation, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Algeria, at marami pang iba. Ganon din naman ang nation na maaaring buuin ng iba't ibang estado tulad ng United Kingdom na binubuo ng English nation, Scot, Welsh, and Irish nation. Although walang effect ang pagpapalitan ng mga terms ng state or nation sa ordinaryong usapan, pero mahalaga pa rin na knowledgeable tayo kung ano ba yung pinagkaiba nilang dalawa. Tsaka mas madali nating maiintindihan ang usapang pambansa kapag defined ng maayos ang nation at state sa atin. Bago tayo mag-proceed dun sa apat na elemento ng estado, ito ay ang mamamayan, soberanya, teritoryo at pamahalaan. Hindi ito masasabing estado kapag kulang ito ng isa or isa lamang ang element na binubuo nito. Let's proceed to the first element of the state, which is the people. The term people is synonymous to a nation. Ito rin ay tumutukoy sa mga naninirahan sa isang estado na may walang tiyak na bilang kung ilan ang mga taong naninirahan sa isang estado. Pero paano natin malalaman kung state na itong tinutukoy. Meron itong dalawang elements of people. Number one, dapat meron silang sapat na bilang at pangalawa ay meron self-perpetuating ang mga tao na naroon. Ano yung element number one? Sila ay may sapat na bilang dahil para magampanan nila yung mga functions ng pamahalaan. Dapat at least merong mayor, police, teacher, tendero, karpentero at marami pang iba. Pangalawang element naman ay ang self-perpetuating na kailangan ay kayang ipagpatuloy ang buhay sa loob ng isang estadong sumusunod na henerasyon. When a state is composed of people who share the same culture and history, it gains the compounded identity of being the nation state. Not all state can be considered as such due to the lack of shared identity among its people. The next element is government. Government is a set of rules and institutions people set up to make them function together as a unified society. Ang pamamahala at batas ay tuwirang nakaka-impluwensya sa pagbabago ng pangkabuhayan sa bansa tulad ng kalakalan, proteksyon sa mamimili, presyo, supply and demand, and infrastructure. Ang pamahalaan din ay grupo ng tao at institusyon na gumaganap sa tungkulin upang maipatupad ang kagustuhan ng Estado. And meron tayong pag-uusapan na two functions of government. Meron constituent and ministrant. Constituent ay ang pagpapatupad ng peace and order, pagsasaayos ng mga ari-arian at pagpapatupad ng hustisya. Ito ay mandatory. Ang ministrant naman, on the other hand, is a social welfare. So, nasa sa institution, NGO, LGUs, and CSR ng ibang mga corporation ang pagpapatupad nito. Ang example nito ay ang pagtulong sa mga mahihirap, pagpapabuti ng kalidad ng buhay ng mga tao, at marami pang iba. Pwede magkaroon ng pamahalaan na walang estado, pero hindi pwedeng magkaroon ng estado ng walang pamahalaan. Meron akong ibibigay na example sa inyo. Example of this ay ang Commonwealth government. Meron tayong pamahalaan noon, pero wala tayong estado. Bakit? Kasi kontrolado pa tayo ng mga Amerikano noong panahon na yon. Kaya wala tayong soberanya. Another topic under government ay ang system of classification ni Aristoteles. Aristotle provided a system of classification of government based on a number of rulers and its efficiency in government. Curtis, 1981. Okay, here are the forms of government. Yung normal form na tinutukoy dito is for the common or general interest of others, and the perverted form naman ay for the interest of the ruler alone. So, define natin what is monarchy, tyranny, aristocracy, oligarchy, polity, and democracy. Okay. A government that is governed by one ruler who has efficient administration of politics and economic values is called monarchy. And kabaliktaran naman siya ng tyranny, which is the rule of dictator. Aristotle argued that tyrant rulers serve only his or her own interest, and this kind of leader is prone to using force to stay in power. Ang monarchs naman are better leaders as they are not prone to employ force to subjugate members of their society as they do not feel the pressure to maintain their position na inherited. The next is aristocracy, which is a rule of the few intellectuals, and based on Aristotle, it is the best form of the government. Kasi less daw ito to prone corruption. Kabaliktaran naman ito ng oligarchs, as seen by Aristotle as problem because these kind of rulers are more predisposed to further their economic interest alone. The rule of aristocrats is the ideal but not possible, as this group of people are not inclined toward the practice of governance due to their preoccupations with the intellectual and philosophical. Pero according to Aristotle, ito na yung pinaka-best alternative for an effective government is to rule of the middle class, or also known as polity. This type of government is the most efficient as it less prone to corruption dahil ang mga rulers came from the middle class and they are satisfied economically and well-educated people. Although well accepted by current world leaders, ang polity, democracy was considered by Aristotle as an effective type of government. He said that democracy had a potential for chaos and corruption, given that it is ruled by the mass that are generally economically challenged and lacking proper education. Another element is sovereignty or soberanya. Ito ay ang abilidad ng Estado na pamahalaan ang kanyang sarili. Meron itong dalawang aspects, which is internal sovereignty and external sovereignty. Internal sovereignty ay ang kakayanan ng isang estado na ipatupad ang kanyang mga batas at policies sa kanyang teritoryo. Examples nito ay bawal manigarilyo, bawal pumatay, bawal ang drugs, and so on. External sovereignty naman ay ang kakayanan ng estado mula sa panlabas na kontrol. Example lang, sabi ng ibang bansa, dapat ang lahat ng tao ay kumakain ng pansit. Joke lang. Pero sabi ng mga Filipino, no, di naman. As per political scientists, ang soberanya ng Estado ay permanente, eksklusibo, malawakan, ganap, at di pwedeng paghiwalayin or nahahati. Sa pagsasama-sama ng apat na elemento ng isang Estado, nagiging posible ang pagkakaroon ng mga bansa tulad ng Pilipinas. This is the geographic space in which the sovereignty of a state is exercised. A territory includes the terrestrial, fluvial, aerial domains, including its territorial seas and seabeds, the subsoil, the insular shelves, and the submarine areas. De Leon, 2005. Ito ay tiyak na bahagi ng daigdig kung saan naroon ang isang estado. Kailangan na permanenteng tinitiran ng mamamayan ang estado. And meron din itong 5 paraan ng pagkuha ng lupain o isang teritoryo, including discovery, prescription, conquest, cession, and acquisition. The definition of the territory can be further understood using this map. Hanggang dito na lang ang lesson natin for today. Sana marami kayong natutunan. And magkita tayo ulit sa mga susunod na lesson. Paalam!